turns out it's me all along. The first conceptualization of identity that I was thinking about was an essentialist understanding of identity, that your identity is some kind of core aspect of yourself that you were born with, it's innate, and you can choose to hide it, or you can speak it, you can show it, but it is fundamentally you, it is unchanging, it is essential to who you are. With each of the notions of identity that I encountered, I looked at how these then apply to people with profound intellectual and multiple disabilities, and where they are in the theorising of these identities. And with regards to an essentialist identity, there's an understanding that builds up around that who you are is somehow a judgment type situation. So there's understanding that says if somebody is disabled, that is because their core identity is bad, or there are religious systems that say that disability is reflective of a corrupted, past life, inner self. So people with profound intellectual and multiple disabilities don't fare well under an essentialist conception of identity. And if we were looking at applying that conception of identity to them, then you would either be saying they have it or they don't. You'd be saying they are profoundly disabled, they're profoundly intellectually impaired, and you'd kind of add on to that, and then they also don't have this core aspect of self, so you'd sort of be saying they're a mass of body parts and fluids, and there's not really a self there. Or you'd be saying, yeah, they have this. There's something about them that is essentially them. And I think this is something, like when you meet a little baby, and even though, maybe that baby's only been alive for a couple of weeks, their parents haven't had a lot of time to shape them, society hasn't had a lot of time to influence them, they still have a little character to them, don't they? There's a bit, and then if you know that baby as it becomes a child, as it becomes an adult, you still see that same little glimmer of character to them. It's like their themness. I remember my parents are in love and have been in love for decades, and it was some significant wedding anniversary, I can't remember what, and my mum had invited friends around, and my dad had put up with friends being invited around, and she had been looking back through old photos, and they spread out on a kitchen work surface a bunch of old photos of themselves. Some of them were them together, and some of them were them as children. And there was a picture of my mother as a 4-year-old standing looking. She just looked, like a little 4-year-old girl with her socks pulled up really high. And I was looking through all the pictures and being really charmed by them, and my dad walked past totally, nonplussed, and I said, "Dad, look, isn't it brilliant? Look at this." And he glanced at the picture of my 4-year-old mother, and he went, she looks just the same now. And you're like, my mum is in her 70s, and that was a picture of a 4-year-old. I was like, she does. And then you kind of look again, and there's something in the posture of that little 4-year-old person. You're like, oh yeah, I could totally have picked out that was mum, because there is something so essentially her. And when my dad looks at her, that's what he sees. He doesn't see what she looks like. He sees that essential, innate identity. And you could do that in relation to people with profound intellectual and multiple disabilities. You could say, yes, here is an essentialist identity.